¿Qué ondas, primos?
Primas
y Primxs.
Welcome to my
Primos.
My Primos
Primo
Podcast. Welcome to the My Primos podcast.
My name is Freddie.
My name's Kevin Garcia.
My name is Elia Maria Matriz.
My name is Jonavina.
This is Chikume, whenever I can make it.
My Primos podcast discusses all things fandom and pop culture,
From comic books,
Movies?
To whatever obsession we have this week.
but with a Latine
Malatine.
perspective. Remember, we're all primos.
We're all Primxs.
Primos.
No matter what part of the world we're from.
¿Qué onda, primos, primas, y primes? Welcome to My Primos podcast. I am your host for the evening, Kevin Garcia, along with my co-host, John Avina of Avina Comics. John, how are you doing today?
Good. How's it going?
I don't honestly know sometimes. I don't honestly know. We are here minus our fearless leader, Freddie, because somebody convinced him to go to Chicago for some reason. I don't know who that would be. Mr. I make comics in Chicago.
Yes.
But yeah, it's what's C2E2 happening pretty much as we're going to be recording. So by the time this airs, C2E2 will have happened. John, what was C2E2 like?
Oh man, I am so tired, but I made so much money. I'm Scrooge McDuck in it.
Excellent. That's the way it should be. And the other voice with us is T.S Luther, another indie great who I have been following on TikTok for, well, since I've been on TikTok. T.S, say hello.
Hello. My name's T.S. and I write comics. I'm legally obligated to say it.
There you go.
No, honestly, I was going to try to like build into it and be like, and what do you do? What does you do? What is your name and what do you do? Could you
I
help
should
us out
make
with that?
people have to lead me into it like it's a game where like, where's Waldo? How do we get T.S. to say the thing?
It's just like when everybody says, I hope the editor put the Invincible in there for, as long as it doesn't break too much copyright. We have an amazing editor, by the way. I've just been loving his work now that he's old enough to edit. So, T.S., we brought you on here partially, because you make comics and you had a successful Kickstarter that just finished. I'm just looking at it right now, well over your goal. But also because you're just a cool dude. And
Thank you.
honestly, I started following you because you are somebody who makes indie comics. I always love the indie comics community. We meet a lot of good people that way, but also because your videos have been very positive and instructing and uplifting, I guess, when it comes to, encouraging people to create. So I like that stuff.
Thanks, man. I try to keep it positive. There's a lot of people who could get on there and they could cry more often and say a lot of mean things. But with a beard like mine, I just don't have that privilege to do it. People are going to think I'm going a different way with it. So I try to keep it positive, give what feedback I can, and try to help. I get a lot of messages from the community like, hey, how do I do this? And I'm like, listen, I don't know, but maybe I can talk you through what little I do know. And that seems to really resonate with the 2,000 some people that do follow me. I'm never going to be an influencer because I can't dance well enough and I'm not pretty enough under the beard to get those big numbers. But I have a really, really cool community of people like you guys who will come and chat with me live, or we can talk comic book stuff, and I can give what few tips I have. The one thing that people still ask me is, can I publish your comic books? And the answer is no. I love all of you, but I can barely publish my comic books. I don't know how to explain to you. That's not how it works. And I'm so sorry. And I watch their hearts break every time they message me. They're like, hey, how does this work? Do I send you my idea now? Do you write me a check later? And I'm like, that's not how it goes, but thank you so much for everything else, I
like to say that I just had, we were at BIPOC Pop, most of the My Primos podcast were at BIPOC Pop, except for someone.
I gotta move to Texas.
Yeah, well, honestly, we're all thinking about jumping
snowed
states.
This week, it hailed, there was a tornado, and it was also 70 at the beginning of the week.
So we had snow once. It didn't go well.
I heard one of your senators flew to Cancun, right?
Yes. Well, you know what's great? You know how bad it was? It was 4 years ago now, and NPR for the past 4 years has had a limited run, a podcast series specifically about that snowstorm. And like I think they thought it was going to be like 5 episodes, and we're now 4 years later, and there's still new episodes about the stuff they find out about that because we're just Texas.
You're
is that
in Michigan,
prepared for snow.
right?
Yeah, I'm in Michigan.
I was just gonna
it's
ask.
always like
In
that.
Midwest, yeah. I was like, I know we talked a little bit about it. I was just like, I am like hardened. I was like, what's the weather? I'm still doing shorts.
Yep.
Like-
It was 25 degrees this morning. I had to scrape ice off my windshield. This afternoon it was 70. I'm wearing shorts right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just how it goes. That's what happens when you live in the Midwest. But we have no earthquakes, tsunamis, forest fires. We just get snow sometimes, and I can deal with it.
See, the thing about Texas is that I used to live on the coast, and we get hurricanes, right? And I used to be a reporter, and I interviewed this woman once about, do you go over hurricanes? Would you rather live somewhere else? She goes, well, with the tornado, there's no warning, but hurricanes, we get a few days at least. And I'm like, that's a good point. We get a few days. And the thing is we get other things in Texas. We get earthquakes, we get fires, massive fires, we get snowstorms, but they're all so rare that nobody in Texas knows how to deal with them. So that's the issue. Like for example, there's a big fire right now near Austin, and everybody's like, do we evacuate? And we're like, we had one like 10 years ago. Don't we know what to do from last time? But no, we don't know what to do from last time because that's what it's like in Texas. I visited Michigan once. What's the part of the top called? The
Upper Peninsula?
Upper Peninsula. I wasn't part of that for a little bit.
The Upers. That's an interesting area because there's like one highway and that's it. You can be in the woods or you can get punchkis, and those are the two things you can do in the Upper Peninsula. You can also hunt, I guess, while you're there, or get run down by wolves. So that there's a few more things on the list right now.
Hey, bears?
There are bears, but you're going to be more worried about the wolves because the bears have enough other stuff to do. The wolves have a problem with you specifically. That's fair. I wish that was an exaggeration. I was camping with my family last summer, and a park ranger rolls up and he's like, hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, well, we booked the campsite. He's like, no, it's a wolf watch. I'm like, what do you mean wolf watch? There's a name for it. There's that many wolves that we have a watch. And he's like, yeah, no, you can't be here. Like we got the wolves, man. You got to get out of here. We had to reschedule because there was a wolf problem.
Jesus. I mean, that does sound pretty cool.
When you say it, that's rad.
Terrifying
But
as it is, you're just like, goddamn wolves. Like,
well, it was something I never thought I had to worry about something like that as a kid, but we have wolves, and wild boar is the other thing in the problem in the woods in Michigan.
That's pretty much Midwest and up. Yeah.
Exactly.
I've been afraid of wild boars ever since I watched the miniseries Thornbirds. Are you guys familiar with that? It killed one of the brothers.
Yeah.
It kills two brothers, and it's like I've been terrified ever since.
Honestly, you're correct in being afraid, though. A boar will mess you up. And
a boar will gore you.
It will gore you. Like there's a whole name for how they do it.
And then afterwards they vor you. Don't Google that.
don't Google it.
But you know what's funny is I used to one of the many jobs I had was I used to work at a zoo teaching kids about animal safety. And I know. I always talk about Avinia lore. I have lore too. It just doesn't come up as much.
Every time we talk, you're just like, oh yeah, I worked at the White House for like a minute. I was like,
no. Okay, that one I didn't do. I did sort of interrogate the governor of Texas a few times, but that's something else.
I would have done it. I would just
no. It was the opposite. It was supposed to interview
you were interrogated by the governor of Texas.
I was told you may not ask about blank, 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 or blank, and I'm like, those are all the things. You know what? Fine. So I literally go to him and I say, so what do you think of the weather? Cool. I was like, so that was my interview. No, but what I was going to say is I used to teach kids about animal safety, and I have done some really stupid things around wild animals in my own life. And it's like, I know better. I literally know better. I taught people, like one time I'm out in the middle of a wild reserve in Texas, and the person with me goes, is that a dog? And I look over there, that's no dog. And I'm like, it was a full on cougar. So what I did is I grabbed my camera and I ran towards it, and it looks at me like, who the hell is this guy? And it just takes off, thankfully. But yeah, I've been that guy. So
there's a little forest preserve on the side of my house right by like this kid's park, and I've lived in the same house since I was like 16. So I used to cut a hole in the fence, and that's where we would go drink. And now that I'm like an adult and worried about safety, other teens have done it. And now there's like coyote and deer and stuff. Like as I'm backing out of because I leave my house at like 4 a.m. for work. As I'm backing out, I have to like really check behind me so I don't hit a deer or some animal that's just hanging out in my driveway. And now I'm just like, goddamn teens. Like,
how far have you gone? Have you thought about patching up the hole where you're like, oh no, I'm that guy?
I did it. And then there's this really cool like majestic scene where I'm there and I'm like wrapping up this wire, and I don't know how to do it. So I'm watching a YouTube video because like I didn't have a dad growing up, so I'm figuring this out. I like look over my like shoulder, and there's like a deer up on like a little ridge, like with the light perfectly behind him. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. don't get in my driveway. Like,
You know, given you're talking about your activities as a teenager, I'm thinking, note for future John, hide this episode from your kid when he becomes a teenager.
he won't get away with anything because I know
Because you've done all the
of
stuff.
them. I've done all the things.
Every generation says that. Every generation says that.
They're going to be
what he's
running
gonna
around with
do
the
is-
cyborgs.
I was gonna say it's gonna come. I know, right? I was gonna say it's gonna come back around the other way. They're gonna start doing things that kids in the 1920s used to do, and we're like, oh, we weren't prepared for this one.
What are they going to start bootlegging hooch? Like, what do you mean?
so-
Like, what are they going to be
kicking the
doing?
can, rolling that hoop down the street? It's gonna be,
The only thing I know for sure is like if I ever see him like vaping, I'm just gonna take it away and like give him like a real cigarette and just be like, it's not cool. Like if you're gonna harm yourself, like let this look cool doing it. Let's just like together once, and then never again because you're my baby.
Of course.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, moving along.
Great
moving
parenting
along.
advice. Thank you for
Yes.
this.
It's what I do.
Well, speaking of advice, we're talking a minute ago about how you said people would come to you for advice, and I had somebody come to me recently. And it's always good to talk to somebody, especially when they're able to hear it, because sometimes the advice they want to hear is make me famous, or how do I get Marvel to pay me money for my idea? In fact, I don't remember what it was. There was a movie we were watching the other day where, you know what it was? It might have been College Girls, that Sex Lives of College Girls TV show.
Oh, okay.
But one of the characters, a mother, was like, well, my child sold a character to Marvel and now has a ton of money. And I'm like, is that how that works? Like, I worked there. But anyway, the point is, people want that stuff. But when they are willing to not get the instant win, what do you tell people?
I mean, like me, John, like I take a book out of a page out of John's thing all the time because, like, if they're ready to actually hear the real thing, it's hey, you tell them just do the thing, go make the book, like go put the work in.
That advice,
Like,
so good.
But like that's how you do it.
That's it.
And they don't ever want to hear it though. That's never the thing. They're never
No.
okay with hearing
No.
that. And so what I do is I'm honest and I show them how far I've come in the 4 or 5 years that I've been doing this and show them how little I've actually accomplished in that way of doing that, making money, working for Marvel and DC. I haven't done any of those things and I'm considered good at this. So like if I am doing the thing and you're not doing any of it, you're coming to ask me for advice, it's like, well, then you really need to get to work. So like the least that you can do is start making books, like start putting them out, start self-publishing them. I can't find a partner. I can't find a collaborator. I can't afford to pay an artist. Doesn't matter. Deal with it. Do the thing. Start like asking people. You're going to get a million no's. Deal with it. Learn to get the thick skin of people laughing at you. No, I don't want to draw your thing. No, I'm not going to do it for that price. All of those. Just keep at it. And eventually someone will say yes, or you'll learn how to draw or any of those things. And you can put out a book and it's going to suck. No one's going to read it and people are going to laugh at you. But more than likely, no one's going to read it. And that's okay. You deal with that. You put out another one. No one reads that one. And eventually someone will read it. And then eventually someone will say, this is bad. And then eventually someone will say, this wasn't too bad. Like, this was okay. And then you work your way up from there. That's the only thing I can actually give them as real advice. They just hate hearing that.
I love this. And since you said take a page from John's book, John, what is the advice that comes from that book?
I'm gonna grab my book real quick. It is
Literally.
so I taught a class yesterday, and I was starting to have real second guesses as I was doing it, because I always feel like TS is like Waluigi or like Wario,
Wow.
where like it's like he's very positive and like I love his videos because like they make me believe that I'm doing it. Like, yeah, he's right, because like you're so positive, and every time I try to make that same like, hey guys, I had a really good day in comics, like let's talk about it. By the end of it, I'm like, you're a sham of a person. but my advice to everyone is you have to start making it. Like, there's no reason why if I could write it and start making it, so can you. At the end of my class, there was like this Q&A, and one guy was like, I am so busy. I have a full-time job. I have a wife and a kid. I don't have time. And then the person that was moderating knows a little bit about me. So she was like, John, hit him with your schedule. I was like, great. I was just like, I'm a dad. I'm a husband, right? Like, that's together. I was like, I work at a tortilleria in the morning, a tortilla factory in the morning. I work at a funeral home, which is why I was late today. I'm so sorry, guys. So I did that. I was just like, I write comics. I go to conventions. So I'm prepping for like 3 shows in the next 2 weeks. I was like, and this is a full-time job. So like I have, and I'm a wedding photographer. So I was like, if I can balance that and editing and writing and making comics, I was like, so can you. But if you don't want to start, then don't start, because it only gets harder as you go. because writing it and making it is one part of the challenge, but getting readers is almost impossible.
Oh, yes.
Because the first thing they're going to ask you is, what is this similar to, and why should I give you my money instead of that thing you just said? And you have to just be passionate. No one's going to love your work more than you will. And if you don't love your work enough to be your champion for it, then no one's going to care. So that's what it comes down to. It's you got to want to do it. You have to do it. And then you have to love what you did. Otherwise, this is just going to be a money pit.
I mean, it's
So
a money
much
pit
money.
either way.
Yeah,
but
right.
still.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But it
Some
becomes
people
worth
don't-
it.
No,
it becomes
because,
worth it.
it's like this. Everything that I do in that field, I'm doing for the love of it. I'm not, like for TikTok. I think the most I make off of that is like $500-$600. If I'm lucky in a month. And that was only because of Robert Downey Jr. Just to be clear, he paid my first car bill, so that worked out.
That's awesome.
But the thing is that I'm going to do a jump to that question everybody always has, which is how do I get to Marvel? And that question, that answer is basically like Marvel, DC, Image, all those guys, make something somewhere else first.
Yep.
Like, whether it's a comic book or you wrote a novel or you were a speaker on a show, there used to be like 30 years ago, you could just blindly submit things and they'd have somebody going through it. But A, too many people do that. B, that became kind of a legal liability as some became an issue. And then C, it's just easier for them to know that you are a quantity before they contact you. So make something somewhere else.
Yeah, like I made the big mistake because I'm a dummy and I quit my day job. I didn't have 2 jobs anymore. I had a really good cushy job. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go make comic books. Don't do that, kids. It doesn't work out well. Especially not for like the wallet. Sometimes it works well out for other things. Like you're really fulfilled because you made this beautiful piece of art, but now you're living in a van. So don't quit your day job.
But is it a nice van?
No, definitely not. It's a terrible van. It's a Dodge Caravan from 1984, and it goes maybe 30 miles. I always said it got me from point A to like pushing distance of point B. And anyway, so like I quit my job to do this, and I sent out all these pitch packets. I spent my life savings making 5 to 7 page pitch packets with some amazing artists, some artists that were working at Marvel, some artists that were working at DC Aftershock Comics, some amazing dudes. And then I would send it to the editors that they knew because they kind of had an in, right? And I started to get feedback eventually. And it was really good feedback. I was like, hey, we like this. We don't like that. Work on this. No yeses. Not even close to we will publish
that's
this
still
thing.
those are great responses, to be fair.
Amazing responses. But I learned very quickly that it didn't matter how good of a thing I wrote. And like I had some stuff that they really liked and were like, come back to us with this when you've self-published like 5 or 6 books. I'm like, oh no, but I just spent all of my money making these pitch packets for these places. They're like, it doesn't matter. You could have written Watchmen. We don't give a shit. We don't know who you are. No one's going to buy your book. And we can't spend them when we can hire Kelly Sue DeConnick, when we can hire Matt Fraction, because they need to work. So they're working for every single publisher, not just Image, not just Marvel, any of these publishers. When we can hire them, no offense, why would we ever hire you? You have nothing. And I'm like, honestly, I love that they were that honest with me, and I got like really good advice from that, because when I got those messages back, I said, okay, what should I be doing? And they told me, they said, go crowdfund something, go talk to Zoop, go talk to Kickstarter, go talk to Indiegogo, go self-publish some books, make a name for yourself in the indie space, and then come back to us. And that's been my journey, and that's worked so far. I get to work with small publishers now because I listened to the advice of the editors at big places. And they weren't jerks. They were honest. They're like, we're not going to take it. Doesn't matter how good you are at writing this stuff. No one cares who you are yet. And people hate hearing that. They want to think that there's a chance where they can win that lottery and get hired at Image. And maybe they can. Maybe they're a better writer than me. I feel like the bar sometimes is on the floor. But it doesn't matter as far as I've seen until you've proven that you're willing to put your blood, sweat, and tears into it first.
And it's not your work and stuff, because I've read your work. Your work is incredible. I love it. I love The Digger. I am excited for when that finally gets its moment.
I'm so excited for that one.
But a lot of stuff with Marvel and DC right now is you're noticing a lot of people that used to be editors now entering the writing space.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of...
I mean, to be fair, that's what it was in the 80s, too. I mean, it's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, and it's going to cycle through. So you got to kind of find someone whose coattails you can kind of like, hey, let's be buddies, grab onto.
Right.
Yeah, and then get an editor to talk to is the hardest thing in the world because they're gazelles, man. Like, they're afraid. They can smell you coming.
Yeah, they know.
They know. They see me walking up to a table. They're like, he's got no money. He's got questions and hopes.
Yeah, he's
Like,
gonna
I
hand me
can't.
a book. He's not gonna buy one from my table. This is what's happening. That and
100%.
they're so
It's like-
kind about it, but like I see them glaze over. I'm like, oh, you're upset to see me. I get it. I'm gonna buy
So
something and
yeah,
walk away. In
He
shame.
has the Tony Stark goatee, but does he have the Tony Stark money?
That's because I can't grow a beard. And if I could have TS's beard, I would.
Just be homeless for a little while, and it just happens. Like when you're
I am
unhoused,
so
the beard
close to
poppins. Like,
Meanwhile, I've been
Oh,
trimming
got
mine
it.
down. Mine used to be much shaggier, and I've been trying to like. I've some of you guys saw the video of me, not with a beard, not doing that again. But I'll trim it down. I'll keep it a little bit more reasonable.
I feel like if you ever just did like straight mustache, you would just have like just straight dad face of just like, hey John, don't do that, and I'd be like, all right, he's right.
And
You would
I
just
would
run
ask
the
for-
Primos page 100%.
and I would ask for all the bacon because we need it.
You would get it because I'd be like, oh, there's one piece of pizza left. I got to ship it to Texas. Like,
Dad deserves this
There-
pizza.
There's
Yeah.
seriously a video of me, or two videos actually, of me without the beard. I did over the winter break this past few months ago, and it's pretty ridiculous seeing me without the beard. It's just yeah. Listen, we talked about one of your books for Split Second, and we talked about Kickstarter and crowdfunding. I want to go in depth on your work, but first I want to take a music break. Let's hear some songs.
Emociones trágicas que vuelven el corazón, que hacen que todo sea más que una canciones melodiosas que creas al actuar, encadenando mi corazón con tu dulce letra al hablar, con tu dulce letra al hablar.
that was awesome. Like, I'm glad we took the break. So happy. But we were talking about your books, TS, and I'm excited to get into it because I've told you a million times. I really like Helly and the Bash. I really like Tokyo Fire. Like, I love what you put out. But you sent me a book a while back, The Digger, and I'm really bad at emailing back. Like, we talked about Discord and just we missed notifications. I
Okay.
actually had written you a thing on Discord about The Digger, and like I had a chance to really dig through it, but I did it and I liked it a lot. And I know you talk a lot about like your writing process and stuff, but like that book, are you planning like a series for it, or like what's your plans for The Digger itself?
So I wrote it originally out of desperation. I messaged my buddy Sam, an amazing artist out of Russia. He does tons of indie books over there, and I don't know if you know about this. It's rough over there. And so he's
I
been
hear it.
trying to get into
Well,
Western comics.
we're starting to learn more about that here. So,
Right.
sorry.
Right, we're learning. And so, like, he hit me up and he liked the cut of my jib, and I was like, let's work on something together. And what I like to do is I took a page out of Kirkman's book, and I always message the artist, what do you want to draw? I'll come up with a pitch for you. I can write whatever. And he gave me some ideas. I sent him back 25-ish pitches, and he said they all sucked. He didn't want any of them. He liked them. He just didn't want to draw any of that stuff. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do that again. What do you want to draw? And he hit up Mesoamerica, and like he's got some family there, and he's been really passionate about learning more about it. And he's like, that's where my passion lies. What can you do? I sent him back 3 really specific pitches, and one of those was, what if Indiana Jones hunts Short Round? And that was where like The Digger came from. I sent him the script. Normally, when I send an artist a script, we're going to pitch it to publishers. They're going to do 5 to 7 pages. The next day, I got thumbnails for the whole book, including like 3 different covers, all this research he had done on the area, the time period that we set it in, with 1930s, Veracruz, Mexico. And he just fell in love with it. And so then like a week later, he did the rest of the book. We colored it. And then it just kind of sat there. I didn't know what to do with it. I was getting ready to pitch publishers, but I was working on a bunch of books for Kickstarter at the time. And we conceived it as 4 issues because we knew that if someone does say yes, they're not going to give us an ongoing series. We don't think we have an ongoing series for this. We could probably squeeze 4 issues out of a small publisher. He got some other work. We kind of let it sit. And then I had sent it to people like John. I think I sent it to you actually at one point, and a few other people like mutuals on TikTok, and I made a video about it. And people say a lot of nice things about my books. That one unanimously came back, hey, you should publish this. A publisher would like this. They would say yes to this.
I'm in that world a lot. I mean, so is John as well. But like I do a lot of stuff into Mesoamerican history and culture, and also like the archaeology of it, which you're looking at as well. And that's the first one of yours that I read, and yeah, it blew me away. This is kind of a weird statement. I've been doing a lot of talks lately, both online and in person with people, about how there was a lack of representation historically. Very you could tell when somebody was not writing something from a culture. But I noticed with Digger and also with Hellion and Bash, there's people of different cultures, different races, different backgrounds showing up, and it all felt very natural. At Digger especially, it didn't. I mean, John, feel free to jump in here, but I felt like it nothing about that felt disrespectful. It felt entirely like we're like being thrown into this world, and I loved it. I really appreciate that kind of acknowledgement. I mean, the argument is always, well, if I'm not from a culture, can I not write that culture? And it's like, you can, just do a good job. And this is good.
Thank you, man.
I've gotten stuff from people like me, like other Latinos, and I'm just like, do you hate me? Like, do you hate yourself? Like, what are we doing, man? And then when I read something that's from someone else, like outside of it, who has like an appreciation for it or just has like a curiosity about it, and it's good, like the way the Digger is, I'm always like, there we go. And I'm never worried about like, can I write about something? Because as long as you do it with care, as long as you're doing it out of a place of like curiosity or respect or whatever, you can write about everything. You don't have to stick to just characters that look like you and just write about that. I think people are real nervous to maybe misstep, so they automatically go towards other people and say like, hey, if you're not that ethnicity, if you're not that, you shouldn't write it. But I think as long as you're doing it respectfully.
So people are nervous to misstep, and then there's people who don't feel they should be nervous at all, and then they misstep because they're just
don't
my
care.
My wife runs a book
That's
group.
not a good transition, man. That's not a good. You don't know. I'm just saying people that do a bad job, and you go, my wife. No,
she's on a book group in Facebook that she moderates.
Okay.
And every other week, she's like selling books on eBay. I'm like, what happened? She's like, turns out this author racist.
Oh.
Yeah. And she was just like, I can't do it. And then and I'll look at the back of the book, and it'll be like, oh, it's a mob romance where they kidnap the other mob. It's Romeo and Juliet, but it's like super creepy. And I'm just like, well, yeah, dude, like read the synopsis.
Well,
She
yeah,
was like,
but
well,
see,
it's popular online, and they sent it to me. I'm like, I get that, but like,
in her defense, I get why a lot of those kind of books are very popular. That there's an audience for it, but there's also, as she's discovered and as we have as well, you'd be surprised where you will find issues.
Yeah, like the bigotry and the fascism, it comes fast and loose, especially from people that look like me. And like that was like a big thing. Like I was aware of it when Sam Goodwin, the co-creator of The Digger, when he said Mesoamerica, I'm like, okay, that means I need to put on my big boy glasses, my big boy pants, and I need to do the research. I need to do the work. So I talked to people from there. I have a lot of friends in South America. So it was like, okay, put me in touch with museums. Like, how do I do the research to make sure I'm doing this right so I'm not being offensive? And also, my main idea going into this was like, I shouldn't be telling a story about this area if I don't have something to say about people that look like me with this. And I say we like I was there, but like people who look like me, right? I was part of it. People like Indiana Jones, white academia were the problem. We took things from other cultures, put them in white museums, and said it belongs there. They were thieves and grave robbers. I love Indiana Jones, one of my favorite movies growing up. Like, it's not like saying, oh, you're a bad person for liking that. But if you look at it through any sort of realistic lens, we were the problem. So that was where I wanted to go at it from. I was like, it's okay for me to tell this story if we talk about who the bad guy really was. And also, what if Indiana Jones hunts short round is very fun to say. So like there's that in, but like if you look at that, if you twist it through that realistic lens, okay, someone like Indiana Jones is the problem. And we can do our research and be respectful of the culture and the area and tell an interesting story. I do worry about being offensive, and that is why I look into cultural consultants. That's why I do the research, because at the bare minimum, if I'm going to tell a story that isn't necessarily mine to tell, the least I can do is do the research. And the second thing that you can do is a little bit higher on that than try is be okay with being a little uncomfortable. We deserve that to a certain extent. With the privilege that I get in society, I can be a little uncomfortable and go, maybe I shouldn't be saying this. Maybe I shouldn't be telling this story. I shouldn't back away from it. I should do the work and reach out to people, like sending scripts to you guys and going, hey, what do you think of this? Is this awful? Is this offensive? Like, it's not that hard to do the work. I think some people are just lazy about it and don't want to be told, hey, this is offensive. So they're scared, you know?
It's not just lazy. It's also like wanting to be exploitative, like, you know,
Right.
wanting to make things exotic or whatever it is. And it's just, yeah, it is exactly what that is.
And I don't want to come off like that. And I never wanted to exploit someone else's story or something else, because that's the whole point of the character, right? Like, that is what the titular digger does. He steals these things from other cultures and puts them in a museum for white people to go and look at. So like, I wanted to approach it from that lens and show that that's not what it's like. It wasn't this exotic place. People lived here. There was culture here. You know, this isn't a backwoods place. This is a place where he might not know about things, but other people do. And he didn't discover these things like in Indiana Jones, where it's like, this is a temple that no one's ever been to. It's like, well, people lived right over there. I feel like someone would have heard about this.
And somebody built that temple. So,
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
no, exactly that. And then it's like, I think I still haven't watched the latest Indiana Jones movie, which is, I feel like I should, but at the same time, it's weird how a lot of that stuff doesn't age well,
Right.
and not for the more obvious reasons, you know, like
I felt like the new Indiana Jones tries to do a little bit of that, where they're like
acknowledge it.
apologizing for the past. And I was like, for like the first time he said it, cool. Like, but it is a fun movie. I will watch Indiana Jones forever. Like, if they came out with one tomorrow, I'm like there at the theater for it.
Honestly, the main reason I didn't jump up and go watch it is because I found out Harrison Ford wasn't going to lose an eye. And you understand, I watched every episode of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and it showed that elderly Indiana Jones had an eye patch. I wanted to know how that happened, and yet it's yet to happen. Like, Harrison's almost that age, and we haven't lost an eye yet. And I'm like, So I'm like, you know what? No, it's not worth my time.
There's still
All right.
time. He's only almost 90. It's fine. He'll be
Yeah,
flying
yeah.
planes and make
Yeah, he was
exactly.
just the Hulk. He can do it. But yeah, so I mentioned a minute ago, Hellion and Bash. I really like that first issue. I was enjoying, the lovable rogue and everything, but then there's that last page. Just the narration tells you where the story's going, and I like that. It's what I was saying before when I wanted to do the World's War comics book that I did. It's one I've had in my head for like 10 years, but it's a superhero book. And I'm like, it's hard to sell a superhero book in indie circles. And I like your superhero book.
Thank you.
I like that it's not necessarily about the superhero team, but it's about the story. How did that one come about?
I mean, there's a lot of different ins for it. One of the big like comic book inspirations, other than Invincible, I love Invincible, was Michael Avon Oeming's The Victories, which was it didn't sell nearly what it deserves. I love that book, but it is a superhero story that has a world. There's history. There's superhero teams. It's got all that stuff, but it's not about that. The first book especially is about one of these superheroes who was abused as a child, and no one cared. He's a superhero. He's got a tragic backstory. That's what it is. It's tragic backstory. It's fodder for him to become Spider-Man. And it's him having to deal with that as an adult, the PTSD, the trauma, and the victimhood of it all. And that showed me what a superhero story could be. It's like giving somebody, feeding them their vegetables, but giving it to them in their bowl of ice cream, where it's like, hey, we're going to cover some serious subject matter. And it's not dark and gritty about people getting beat up and we cut the Joker's head off and Robin has a spear. It's not about that. It's about heavy.
What if Batman killed? Like,
exactly.
Yes, no one's ever done that story before.
Right. Like, and it's like, it showed that you could be mature without being grotesque. And I wanted to do that with Hellion and Bash. And, not to get too personal, but like, I have stuff in my childhood and I have a lot of friends who did as well. And I've seen how the system can fail kids, and
Yeah.
not just because the system's
I
bad,
have
but
to.
because the people in it are complacent and complicit in that type of abuse, because standing up to the powers that be is scary. So if Batman is the power that be, it's like, well, I can stand up to Batman, but he's going to beat me because he's Batman, right?
I mean, he's a billionaire and a master fighter and has everybody on his side. So
and so say you're Superman, right? You could be Batman. But what if you're afraid that you're not going to be able to take on Darkseid without Batman? So even if you know that he's a bad guy, it's like, yeah, but so it's one kid or the world, and it's, the needs of the many type thing. And so you have these other heroes that make this really terrible judgment call, in my opinion, as a dad and as someone who cares about kids. It's like, okay, you're letting this kid be the fodder. And when you look at Batman and Robin, who I love, and I would never tell the story with actual Batman and Robin, but when you have this kid who's going to deal with this type of thing, I've seen that story not told. Like, you have like Young Justice or many other stories where you have a character go, hey, should we be doing that with Robin? And Batman goes, yes. And that's it. That's the end of the story. Like, no one ever actually steps up and changes anything. And I wanted to tell a story where that happened. And I read those stories, and I started writing comics, and I had a superhero world like everybody else did when they were 10 years old. And I thought this would be the time to do it. I was a little bit wrong because people want The Boys, and it's not that.
Yeah.
and I get those messages.
Well, it's like with mine. Everybody's like, is it Watchmen? Is it Watchmen? I'm like, it's not. It's not Watchmen.
Not Watchmen, but no,
Yeah,
not
there
really.
you go.
The class I did yesterday, or the class I did the other day where I was teaching, they're asking me questions, and someone's like, how do I write The Boys? How do I tell a story that could be grotesque and whatever?
Please.
And I was like, first of all, The Boys comic is terrible.
Yeah.
I was like, it's like Gen X fever dream. It's just
It's like the premise was already basically done with Brat Pack back in the 80s, and it
Right.
was
Yeah.
messy then, but it told a new story. Now you're not telling a new story.
And that's what I told him. I was like, I'd rather you work harder to give me a story about characters that I love that have to deal with like a terrible world, and that's why they're either so optimistic. Like, give me a Ted Lasso in a world that
love Ted
hates
Lasso.
him.
Yes.
Like, give me something like that where I can cheer for him instead of giving me another run of like, everything is terrible, everything's always going to be terrible because we're all terrible people. I was like, not necessarily, dude. Like,
and that's
be
the story
optimistic
of it.
about yourself.
Like
Yeah,
that,
and-
it's violence and grotesquerie for the sake of it. And
yeah.
Sometimes it has some interesting things to say, and the show
Oh, yeah,
does a much
the-
better
the
job.
I
but
understand.
concept, the
More than the
concept is
comic.
good.
yes,
Yeah.
1,000%.
Concept makes sense. Well, it's like pretty much everything Mark Millar's ever done. The concept is okay. The books are horrible. But
Real fun Mark Millar story. So I'm in college, right? And I'm like excited. I didn't know about Invincible, so I was like, I have this idea. It's like a realistic superhero show. I was like, it's a web series that I wrote. It was called Superior. So I was like, it's a fun story about a guy that discovers he has powers, and he's a doofus, but he's gonna try to save the world. It's Invincible. Like, it's so close in like theme. But Mark Millar came out with a comic called it's called Superior, my show. It came out and it was called Superior at the exact same time. So like, I was trying to do a Kickstarter for a web series at the same time that comic came out.
Oh,
and
no.
everything was just like, do you know who Mark Millar is? I was like,
when I was a teenager, I made my first original character, and he was going to be called Wildcat. And then and I didn't know about the 1940s DC character at the time,
Right.
but a year later, Jim Lee comes out with Wildcats, and I'm like, okay, he's Jim Lee. Maybe it won't last. Okay, well. and sure enough, I mean, it's not still around, but I mean, he's still Jim Lee, and it's like you're not gonna,
They
But-
still
but-
pop up from time to time. Like, you'll
They
catch
do.
them
They're in the
in some random
backgrounds.
DC
Well, they
background
just-
stuff.
talked about Rob Liefeld's leaving to go kickstart. What's his hero team
Youngblood?
name?
Youngbloods.
Youngblood. He's doing an independent run of Youngbloods away from Image and everybody. It's just his, and I was just like, good luck.
Yeah.
So, but what it all comes down to, what we're all saying is basically this, which is, I said earlier, like, you got to make your own stuff. You guys saying just make it. If your story is just, I thought up a really cool superpower, that's great, but that's not going to really do well in the indie world. You need to have a story. So when I told people I was doing a superhero book, everybody was like, "Oh, what are their powers? Who would win in a fight? Are they stronger than?" And I'm like, it's not about that. Like in fact, that's why I purposely made all of my characters super generic. So like, look, you could tell that's the Flash, you can tell that's the Hulk.
Same.
We're gonna move on. Like, it's not about what they can do.
And some indie guys too, they'll knock that. You're like, well, you're just doing Batman, but he's evil. I'm like, well, kinda, yeah. That's the end to the story. You did that on purpose because people know who the Flash is. People know who
Right.
Superman is.
Exactly.
You make a character that looks like that. They don't have to go, I wonder what this guy's about. I don't get 15 messages asking what this guy's backstory is. because you see a guy in a cape with a cowl on standing on a roof, you go, that's Batman. I understand that, you know?
And the thing about that is that it doesn't have to just be always Batman and evil, because that's been done 1,000 times. It's how you're doing it, from whose point of view you're doing it, everything about that.
Which is why I really like that book. Like when it came out and I got it, I like read through it and I was like, and then I kind of came back. I hardly read things twice unless it's like a trade. I came back to it and I was just like, and then I thought like a couple of days later, because your Kickstarters were pretty close together.
Yeah.
As far as like Kickstarters I saw. So when I saw it come back in, I was like, yes. And then I was in the car and you were doing a live and you're like, oh, my Kickstarter's coming out. I was like, I missed it. And when I jumped on it, I even messaged you like right after I did it.
Listen, I know got T.S. Luther here in John Avina, but my Kickstarters are pretty close together too. I mean, I've had one every 4 years.
I like your Kickstarter. I do one every 4 years too, because
but you have other. But my point is, I need a publisher. I need somebody to help. I can't be in charge of myself like you guys can. I can write. You could give me. I could jump, but I can't be in charge of myself. That's where I need some advice. You know.
Well, we can always give you the advice, but man, that's the hardest part. That's the thing that I tell people all the time when they're like, "How do I do a successful Kickstarter?" I'm like, "I don't know. That's the part I'm bad at. I can write scripts all day."
I'm gonna get Elia to commission a piece, and it's gonna be like TS as the angel on one of your shoulders, and then me as like the little devil on the other side, and TS is like, "You can do it. Like you just gotta work on it."
And then being like, "Why haven't you done it yet?"
Stop talking to the people on your shoulders and get to work. You know, like that's always how it is.
It's gonna be Freddie.
Freddie's just being like, "Let's talk about it on the pod."
And then Chikome, just kind of in his space somewhere.
I love it so much, and I love making books that people go in and they go, I know what this is. Batman's the bad guy. I get it. And I like the feedback I always get is, actually, this is pretty good. Like, they're so surprised.
Yeah.
For something about it, like, they'll see it, and they're like, this is going to be, like, amateur trash. Honestly, is the vibe that everyone gets when they pick it up. And then they get through it, they're like, that was not bad. I don't know if it's, like, the low expectations or something, but people are usually genuinely surprised.
I love the visual. I love the subtleness of the dialogue that makes. I mean, I say subtle. I mean in the part that tells you where it's going. That part is subtle, and I like that.
Thank you.
Superheroes,
go ahead.
Sorry, superheroes are hard because like I'm at conventions a lot, and you see a lot of like cape and cowl stuff, and it is just like, this is my Justice League, and they're all bad guys, or this is like some kind of story, and it's just like, but it's the Flash. And people will go, the latest thing I've seen is a lot of like Catholicism, but with superheroes at shows. And that's kind of people's twist on it. But I've seen like 3 people table to table telling the same thing. And I'm just like, I don't do a lot of superheroes for that reason. Besides Superior, I never found my angle. Like even Lucha Forever, we kind of talked about it the other day where it's like, yeah, he's a hero, but I see him punch a robot. And then he's just like, am I a bad dad? And that's like that whole book.
But that's what makes it work, and like you gotta have an ending. You can't just be like, this is my cool power set. And like, you do see that a ton, and you gotta have something else. And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, my books often are the vegetables thing, but like with ice cream with it, because I know you're not just gonna read it on its own. And I think being an indie guy and being somewhat new sometimes to pop up on someone's feed is they don't necessarily have the belief that I can pull that off. So if they start to believe it even just a little bit, they're extra impressed because they didn't expect much from it. And so I'm able to ride that wave. And originally, you know, the Batman being the bad guy was a big twist. It was going to happen later on. You're going to go, and like,
Invincible took like what, 8 issues before they finally told you what it was really about.
Yeah.
And then not even getting into the whole Ultimate Spider-Man thing. So I was like, you know.
Exactly. I think it might have been even a little bit earlier than that. And originally he wasn't even going to do it till much later. And they said, listen, you need a hook. This is just a superhero book and people don't care enough.
I've had that discussion with other writers. I've been like, you have a good plan, but if you don't let the reader know, they're not going to come. And it's like, oh, but it's going to be a surprise in issue 10. I'm like, understood.
They got to care.
To get there.
Yeah.
And it's an indie book. People aren't going to support me. They're not going to go and buy. I'm not going to be able to get to the trade if I don't give them something. So I did it much earlier. And I also made it not a secret, right? Like very clearly Batman is the bad guy through it. The Gargoyle is a bad dude. He gets worse and much more sinister as the series goes along. And it makes it very apparent that you need to...
wait, hold on a second. Time out. A billionaire is a bad person?
Not all the time.
No. He's going to run for president the next issue.
They're here to help us.
I'm talking right now, guys. What don't I know? No.
Yeah, but like you have to like show them that. And and show them that it's more about the characters. And I made sure I did it from the sidekick's point of view, from the victim's point of view, because it's really Hellian's story. That's why his name's first up. And being somebody who didn't have necessarily the most active dad in my life, it's a little bit of wish fulfillment, right? Where you have this lovable rogue dude who is not a good guy, like, especially when you see him in issue 2, like, he's just there to steal stuff. And even he is going, maybe I should help this kid while everybody else is sitting on the sidelines. And that's the point, is like showing people that, like, you can go do this. You can go help that kid, you know?
It's funny. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about the lovable rogue and Batman analogs. I'm like, oh, this could have been Catwoman, but I'm realizing that would have been an entirely different story.
It's a different story, but
yeah.
I do, and I get flack sometimes when people are like, well, so, like, you say Catwoman, because that's why I say Bash is this world's Catwoman. And they're like, but it's a dude. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Like, I don't know what you're... She doesn't have to be super hot and in leather. Like, she can still be Catwoman, you know?
I mean, he can still be hot and in leather.
He is hot and in leather. That's the thing. And the other question I get a lot is like, well, isn't it going to be weird? You have this like dude running around with a kid. I'm like, that is literally Batman. It's already
I was gonna
weird.
say, they're already doing that. Yeah,
it's already happening. But the kind of critiques I get from fans, and I always say this, is like, the fans are correct with their critiques. They're never correct in how they want you to fix them. Like, if they have something to say, sometimes it's okay because it's a thing I'm going to answer in the book. But if they're talking about it, it's something I want to address. But they never have a good enough idea to replace mine. And it's something that I try to wrestle with. I'm like, I love that you have critiques, and I'm going to approach that and think about it and dissect it. But you don't practice writing, so the ideas that you come up with to fix it, I'm like, I don't know how to tell you, but that's not going to work, you know?
I don't get those critiques. I'm not going to read it. And I'm like, that's fine.
Those like, people just don't message me, you know?
Thank you for letting me know. That's really cool.
Like, I'm glad I got to read this. And there's some stupid game out called All-Star Brawlers. It's a mobile game, so I've never heard of it. Okay. The first 2 characters that came out, I kid you not, were an undead mariachi singer and a lucha wrestler. And every like, if I post a lockjaw video, it's just like, is this Boko? And then if I post like the lucha character or like, and that's the next comment. I was like, I love this. I'm not feeling, and then I wanted to play the game on live and then talk about my books and how it's different. But I couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure out the science. I'm an old man back here.
Okay, well, I thought you were exaggerating that. We were on live the other day, and you didn't understand it, and I was like, okay, he's playing this up, right? And then your wife was in my live today, and she's like, no, he really cannot work any of this
I'm the oldest man here, and I don't know how to do any of those things, you whippersnappers.
Oh, I tried to do a line the other day because somebody was like, hey, let's go on and talk about it, because they saw me and you do it, so they thought I was like taking applications. I was like, no, man, I like TS's book. Like, I want to talk about it. I was like, I don't know you like that. And then I tried to do it, and then it was like, I somehow made it 48 like panels.
How you got more panels than what we have?
I can't go back. I can't reduce it. So I was like, I'm just gonna give up.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm getting like, again, people are gonna think you're nicer because you were on with me, and I'm like, yeah, send me your pitches. Let's talk about it. You know, send me a DM. Here's my phone number.
But
you know,
if they
you can
want
do this.
it, they know, like, talk to TS because he's gonna be nice to you. If you talk to Johnny, he's gonna be like, well, what are you doing to help yourself?
I mean, eventually
you do need to do that angel and devil thing.
Yeah, eventually I get there.
Who's gonna help you fix it?
Exactly. I don't humor them the entire time, but like, I'm always on. Like, you can message me. The feedback I'm going to give you often, because people always just want to send me an idea. Hey, I have this awesome idea for this character, and I go, cool, thumbs up. And they're like, well, what should I do? I'm like, I don't know. It's in the execution, man. I'm not going to write it for you.
That's the other thing that always gets me is people will say, well, I have an idea and I need your help writing it, but I don't want to tell you what it is because you might steal it. And the thing is like, look, I'd rather you didn't tell me your idea if you're worried about it, but like, it's always the execution. Like, you use the example of Invincible, we use the example of The Boys, Buddy. All of these things can be pared down to being similar ideas. Right. It's the execution. How do you do it? It's like, so I mentioned earlier that studios get gun shy getting, blank, not applications, but submissions.
Submissions, yeah.
Blind submissions. A big example is the reason, the final straw reason anyway, that Alan Moore doesn't want his names on any movies that come out based on his works. And what it came down to is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is not great. But that's not what upset him. What upset him is that when the movie was being made and coming out, this guy tried to sue the studio saying, hey, I sent you this script back in the day, and you clearly just you decide to make it without paying me? And he's like, no, it's based on his book. So then the lawsuit was changed to say, oh,
Alan
well,
Moore.
clearly you hired Alan Moore to make a fake comic book just so you didn't have to pay me, because that makes so much sense. And the thing is, it was just, the idea was, what if you took public domain characters from the Victorian era and put them together and had them solve a crime? It's like, that's not that original, but it's how you do it. It's what you do with it that makes the difference. You could do your own Superman movie, your own story, your own Batman story. Do something with it that makes it your story.
Hey, you still gotta be a good writer. You can have an
Yeah.
awesome idea. It means nothing. You have an awesome. So many of my books are terrible ideas. What if Batman was a bad guy and beating up Robin? Okay, that's a terrible idea.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you. That is a terrible idea.
Terrible.
But having read it, like literally just a couple hours ago, it is actually really good.
Thank you. It's in the execution.
And I'm not blowing smoke then. I mean it. Because it's like, yes, it is. If you told me, elevator pitch, what if Batman was bad and Robin needed to team up with Catwoman? I'd be like, cool.
Cool,
You know?
man.
But,
You know what's fun? I have to pitch every once in a while my book Americana, and when I wrote it, I was just like, this is a father-son story, because all of my books somehow are. And it's a story about, it's a coming-of-age horror story. And somebody's like what? And I'm like, Dreamcatcher, any Stephen King novel. And I was like, oh, this is with me writing Stephen King.
Yeah.
Like, I've done, but then it's the execution. It's like, well, I was a funeral director. I get to write about, like, realistic grief, right? Because, like, you see the Punisher, who was just like, my whole family was killed and now I can still function. And I'm like, no, you can't, man. Like, I've seen the other side of that. You're not going to feel a lot for a while.
And that's what your
that's why I
flavor
write
of
the way I
Stephen
do.
King is rad. Like, that's the thing. Like, you bring something
Yeah.
to the table. And sure, like, one of the reasons why I like your stuff is because he does have that Stephen King flavor. You do have that, like, he punches robots and then thinks about as if you're a bad dad. Like, you have those moments of reality there. And that's something that not everybody brings to the table. Not even Stephen King all the time. But I like that because I like Stephen King. So when you pitch it like
Right.
that, I'm like, shit, I should check this out more often because I do dig that. There's nothing wrong with having a similar style. It's not the same execution. If I want that, I can go read American Vampire. He did a great job there. Like, I don't have to worry about that. I think sometimes people, it's back to like the pitching thing where people are afraid they're going to steal somebody else's idea because they only have one. And they don't know how to make up stuff like we do because we do it day in and day out, and we've done our work and pitching all those stories. So they run out of ideas. So they think that the one that they have, because it's so important to them, is gold because they've never held a lot of gold before, right? Like $1 is worth a lot to people if you've never had $1 before. But when you have so many ideas, you start to learn that they're a little bit worthless. And I hate saying that because I love my ideas. They're my babies, but they are worthless until you do something with them.
Yeah.
It's like having a bag of seeds. Who gives a shit? Did you plant them? Did you grow anything? You can't sell it at the farmer's market. I got seeds too, man. Everyone's got seeds. You got to plant them. You got to grow something cool that somebody wants to see first.
I have a Google folder, and it's just called the Idea Store. So every time I'm like, I've burnt out of ideas, I'm a fraud, I can't do anything, and then Emily would just be like, go check the Idea Store.
Yep.
And I'll go through it. I'm like, oh, this idea was pretty cool.
Yeah,
like,
I got
maybe
one of
this
those too. Mine just says novel ideas, and it started out that way, but they're mostly comics now. But it's just literally, it's a Google Doc of just like, that one works, and I just added it to it this week. I'll be honest, most of the adding to it comes in the form of dreams, because I'll just wake up in the morning, I'm like, that was weird, writing that one down.
I get about a text message a day from Mr. Fish Comics. Officially, love that dude.
Another amazing dude on TikTok.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
Somebody I learned more about through TikTok. I can't even say the word right now. It's weird.
But I love him, and about once a day he texts me, "Hey man, woke up from this wild dream. What if like there was an infinite field and it screams at you?"
I like
and
it.
I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm gonna write it, and then he'll send me back like an outline for a story, and he's like, do you think you can make this work? And like he does that to me every single day. And I'm like, Fish, we have 3 series that we're like commissioned to create right now. We have other work to do. He goes, yeah, but what if we did a graphic novel in between, sleeping? What if we sleep for 20 minutes and then I go draw a book for you?
Okay, I think you need to skip the sleep,
Right,
and just work on it.
I mean, that's already what I do when we talk about how do we make comic books and be dads and have a day job. Like, that's how you just stop sleeping. Do you ever notice why, like, when we first got on TikTok, we all looked 20, and now we all look 90? Like, that's what happens.
Look
Shut up,
at
John.
these
I know you look
bags,
better,
guys.
but you
No,
do
no,
have the
look at
bags.
these.
Oh, we're looking.
Yeah,
We're looking.
like it's rough out here,
HD camera.
Well, you can still see it on your low res camera, and so like that says a lot for what happens. Like, if you want to make comic books, you just have to stop doing anything else, including sleep,
Yes.
have no money, and be really
I've
good
decided
at
to cut out pooping
rejection.
altogether.
Well, like, listen, you can write while pooping. It's hard to write while peeing. You can
Laptop.
write while pooping.
Well, that's where voice recordings come in.
Oh, yeah, you can start dictating. Just make sure you're doing it yourself and not like to like some sort of office, worker there. Like, you got to make sure that you're working solo if that's the
It's
case.
like, listen, you're going to hear water in the background. I'm feeding my cat. Anyway, so the next thing that happens.
I have been live with an artist before. Like, I was working with this artist. We were working on a series that's being sold right now, so I can't talk too much about it.
Oh,
but
what's
we're
it
working
about?
in. You almost got me. I almost answered.
Don't do that. Look, that's why they had to find a new actor for the century. All right,
Exactly, man.
don't do that.
So like we were working on a thing, so I brought him on a live, and the publisher was secretly in the chat, right? Like, it was a buddy of mine. I was like, hey, they don't know that we're gonna be selling this to you. You want to come and like kind of meet the artist? Was gonna kind of freak him out. The guy pees on live, like. You can hear the flush and everything. And I get a message from the publisher and he goes, that's not the guy, right? I'm like, of course not. No, it was a different guy. There was a couple of people on there. Definitely not him. I messaged him frantically. I'm like, what did you do? And I was like, I tried to cover for him. I was like, well, he's washing his dishes. And he says on live, he's like, no, man, I'm not washing my dishes. I had to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, you can't, no, God. So don't worry. The publisher's not listening to this podcast because it's not live right now.
No.
But
Also, the publisher doesn't know this exists until now. So anyway, we're
oh man,
but I know exactly what you're saying. Though it's always weird when so often I'll be talking to somebody and they'll be like, I can't tell you about this, but I'm doing a thing.
Yeah,
and I'm like, cool that you just told me that you can't tell me, but all right. And then they'll remember that I'm like a journalist or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, don't, it's off the record." I'm like, "I don't care."
Yeah,
right
that's not how it works.
I'm not on duty.
Exactly. And like, I never like am sacred with my ideas. Like, I'm pitching books right now, and there's some that I can talk about. Like, I got a Magical Girl that I'm really close to 2 different publishers buying. It's Magical Girls, but what if instead of forming their own team and fighting bad guys in the 90s, they got picked up by the Men in Black and they become suits? And like, that's the whole pitch of the book. And like, I can talk about
like
that.
it.
Like, someone might buy it. Like, we're in negotiations right now for it. But like, you could go make that book. It's gonna be different than mine. Like, that's not
sailor suits.
Right. Like, that's not how ideas work. Like, most of the time when people want to buy something from a creative, they want to buy it because they want to work with that creative. The idea is secondary.
The dream I had the other day was there was this kid, like middle school, and he thought he was turning into a werewolf, but it turns out he was turning into a Bigfoot.
See,
And that's as far as I got with that dream. But I was like, this is a basis. This could be like a kid's book or something. I can see that happening. Yeah.
Every one of my dreams is just very hyper realistic. Like, in the moment, hey, when you wake up, we gotta go get coffee and then head to
You wake
work,
up
and
and you
this
got
is what
coffee.
your day is gonna be.
See,
and I'm
I
like,
dream
I
movies.
dream like that too.
Yeah, I dream
Yeah.
movies. I dream like often I'm directing them. I'm very rarely in the dream. I'm usually it's like, and then this scene happens.
I mean,
and
your
this scene
dreams
happens.
sound rad. Like, I
Yeah.
wish
That's
I
that's
could
why I
do
write
that.
them down the next day.
all my dream, like every idea I came like that I've written has come from just random lines of dialogue. Like, I'll just like hear a conversation, and be like, "Huh, who's that?" And then I start writing it down. But like, that's where it all. Like, I never have like a cool visual pop into my head first, and then I piece it together. And so it's just like, oh, someone's talking about this. They kind of said that. I was like, all right, let me discover.
Yeah, it sets the
saying
wheels
what.
in motion, and then it like
Yeah.
proliferates into an idea. That's how my brain works too. I never get a cool like full finished dream that's like, oh, and this is the story, and now I'm writing this Bigfoot young adult all ages graphic novel, which you should totally write. You're gonna make a lot of money off that. I wrote all
It's called
ages
Cryptic
werewolf graphic
Crossing. I've
novel.
written it. No one's reading it.
Right?
What? I have one
I-
called Cryptic Crossing. It's about Bigfoot and 2 siblings going cross country to find them, and it's an A to Z. Apparitions Appalachia were the first one. Banshees in Baltimore, Chupacabras in Chicago is the next one. I've written it. It's out. I stopped writing it because I was like, this is hyper specific towards my interest of like cryptids and writing about Chicago style hot dogs.
But
When
that's rad.
I was 13, I wanted every book there was on cryptids. So like,
have you ever read
that's
the
right audience.
well, there's 2 series from a Michigan writer. There was called the Michigan Chillers and American Chillers, or American Thriller, something like that.
Michigan. I don't know
It's
this.
the Mitten.
Where is this place?
It's under the Upper Peninsula. And like
that's where that is.
exactly.
Okay.
And like every single
Humor him.
state would have a different cryptid, and that was what the books were about. And they sold very well, at least here in Michigan, where we don't have many things like the internet or TV. But what we did have was books, and no one reads them but me. But like that sold pretty well. You could probably do something with that. It's all about getting it into front of the right audience, because there's some goober that's like, I wish I knew about X cryptid. And you can give them that book. You'll make a solid $10, but someone out there wants it, right?
The one kid's book I wrote that does sell is the Mighty Kamazotes, and it's a story about a sick dad and the son. And I'm just like, well, of course that's the one that made it. Like,
yes, it's like that's
know
what
what?
it takes, man.
John, you'll do good at Disney. All right, as long as the parents are sick constantly,
that's
Disney will
what
be
it
like,
is.
we're in. We're in.
It's all the movies I wrote or watched growing up were Disney movies. And then I wrote Burrow, and I was like, oh, it's because I love Redwall, or is it because I love Robin Hood?
Yep.
A whole lot. That movie is amazing.
There's a whole other awakening for that movie. But
The
anyway,
parents need to be dead or caked up. Those are your two options when it comes to
no,
parents
that's
and
Pixar.
Disney.
Pixar cakes them up. And,
Right.
and
Well, listen, you can do
Disney
both. Like, what are we,
proper.
like, you're not a suit.
Yes.
Don't paint him into this corner.
Yes. Corpse Bride parents. Let's do that. Let's do this.
that might have been done before. Hold on. But man, now I've lost so much plot. I'm just thinking of dead parents, not caked up parents. Let me hold on.
Oh,
This is
I
not
would
live,
be
right?
on the way.
I can tell you about dead parents. Okay. Speaking of dead parents, no, I've been really enjoying this conversation, and I kind of wanted to ask, but before we move on to finish the show, I want to ask you guys about stuff you've been watching lately and are getting into, comics, TV shows, books. TS, you're joining us. What have you been into lately?
Been catching up on Daredevil Born Again. Love that. So glad it's finally back.
I've heard of this.
I was a gigantic fan of the original series. Who wasn't, right? Like, I don't know many nerds who are like, I don't like Daredevil.
What's freaking me out about the series is that you guys know about the reshoots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they scrapped the whole season and did it over again, and I'm like, it's good. And it usually when I hear about that happening, where they have to do all these kind of last minute reshoots, it's like it still sucks. And I'm like, this is like, you know, when you have a memory of something and it's really good, but then you go back and see it and you're like, oh, it wasn't good. This is like my memory of the Daredevil show, you know, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm like, what's that other season? Like, what?
And like, it really seems like they've amped up a lot of stuff that was missing from the original series, like all of the courtroom drama. And I've seen some complaints from it, but especially people who love Daredevil comics or police procedurals, you know, Midwestern dads like myself, watched a lot of Law and Order, you know, at 4 a.m. At whatever day job you had. And like, I love how much they've leaned into it. And I've seen some complaints where like, we're still no Daredevil in, you know, in so many episodes. I'm like, I'm loving so much about this.
I mean, now I'm thinking about in Born Again, in the original comic.
He wasn't Daredevil for the majority of it. It was all building
I was
up
gonna
to
say,
it.
wasn't that the whole point?
Yes, he's in it for like 2 seconds in the first issue, and then they pops up in the last issue, basically, is it. It's all about him born again, becoming Daredevil again. And so when I see that in here, I'm like, no, this is rad. I love the courtroom drama. It's all written well. They're saying stuff like with deadpan, don't worry, it's admissible in court because he wasn't wearing his magical amulet. And I'm like, they just said that with like just offhand, no stress, straight face talking about his magical amulet.
By the way, I want to touch base on that. Episode 3, spoilers for an episode that came out by this point 2 weeks ago. If you're listening to us live, or not live-ish when it comes out. This is the story of White Tiger. And I literally just posted a video today about that because I have been talking about Latino superheroes for a while, and White Tiger has been the bane of my existence. Because he was touted as, you know, Marvel's first great Latino superhero, and he literally got his powers from the garbage. But the thing is that some other hero threw away. But as bad as that origin was, his ending was worse. And I went back to reread it, and it was very well written. It's Bendis. It's well written. It's just not well thought out. And then for the TV show, they have the chance to like readdress this, and they add the fact that it's now all Matt Murdock's fault.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, everything that happens after this is because of you, Matt. Like, seriously, like what? At least it wasn't entirely his fault in the original comic. It was just like, oh, incidentally his fault. This is like, you literally did that. Like, you don't out somebody publicly. By the way, John, there's something everybody needs to know about you. I don't know.
Spartacus.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
But like I did appreciate that, and like I like that he was trying to do the right thing. Very clearly went around it the wrong way. A great analogy for allyship, and I think that works. Like
it really is.
it's like we're just really loud and trying to help, and we do a terrible job of it. Like that's
we're
more
helping
often than not.
people like you.
But like I also think that it gets to touch on a lot of the police brutality stuff that needs to be talked about, and I like that.
In the original comic, I went back to reread it. Ayala flat out says, "Oh, they treat me really nice in prison," and I'm like, so I really
by
love
someone that doesn't know.
Yeah, exactly. I really love that they are not only addressing that, but they're doing two things that I could see. Number one, having Matt, especially in the comics, he's always doing the pro bono stuff for poor people. But here, it's like he's actually getting to have conversations with people to learn. Well, just having faith in the justice system isn't enough. And then the second thing they're doing is flat out, with all the cops having the Punisher tattoos on them, they're like, we are going to make sure that if you associate a cop with this symbol, that's a bad person. And I'm like, way to go, Marvel.
I love that.
Yeah.
And they attempted to do it in the comics, and then they skirted around it because they kind of chickened out of it, which sucks.
The last result of that was they gave Punisher a brand new logo and new powers.
So ugly.
It was intended to be, I think. I think that was kind of the point. But they replaced fascism with cultural appropriation, which is a weird choice. But then where we left off,
Marvel.
Yeah, true. Where we left off with Punisher, though, if you read the last issue of that series, is he got sent to a magical fairyland, and that's it. We don't know what happened to Frank after that. And I'm like, man, that would be a fun story. I want to see Frank in a magical fairyland.
I want to see John Bernthal do that story. I would love to see the alpha male guy and go and
wait, time out. I want to say real quick. John Bernthal is not playing the alpha male Frank, which is what I loved about his series.
Yeah.
He's playing Frank who acknowledges and deals with PTSD. He's a Frank who actually pauses and goes, should I kill this person? And I'm like, they softened him for the show because you have to. And I like it.
They've done such a good job with that.
The first comic I really remember, because my very first comic was like the Bart Simpson comics, but then when I started like investing in it myself, it was Punisher War Journal, but from like the 80s. It's the one, like the cover's like him jumping gun in hand or whatever.
That narrows it down.
The inside of it is it's a poem, and it's the what is it? It's I think it's like Robert Frost or Walt Whitman. It's a guy wandering through the woods. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the spirit. It's just that. All the narration, everything that's happening is Frank Castle's origin story, but to that poem. And that stuck with me so much of like, because I knew who Punisher was from like the Spider-Man cartoon and from like the movie and all that. But
you saw the Dolph Lundgren movie? Because I did as a kid.
I did.
That sticks with you.
Fuck. But like,
I always remember he had a knife in his boot, and I was like, I want to hear whether there's a knife in his boot. I don't know.
Yeah, but it stuck with me to where we wrote a Lockjaw short that like it's just to that poem, and I was just like, because it's like it's what I wanted more Punisher to be, and I'm consistently disappointed that they don't, especially as a funeral director, like you're not treating trauma. This guy's not getting up. And it's like my constant critique. And I live in Illinois, so there's a lot of pickup trucks, F-150s with that Punisher logo in the back.
Sure.
I live in Texas.
Yeah, right.
But nothing crazy happens in Texas. Everything's fine. It's peaceful.
We're not Florida.
There's no Warren Bossing say. It's all fine. There's no issues
exactly.
here.
Exactly.
But I love that they've softened Frank. They've let him sit in his sadness, which is a thing I don't think that enough like comic books are willing to do with their characters.
Yeah, I didn't think I could watch his series until I saw the series. I was like, oh, they actually did this right.
And like you were saying with Matt, and like I don't want to spoil episode 4 since you haven't seen it yet, John. But they show him how wrong he is with how he's representing a lot of his pro bono clients. Like a character just calls him out. Is like, listen, sure, maybe I did a bad thing, but you never even asked me why. Like you don't understand what I'm dealing with. Yeah, I'm supposed to thank you for what you're doing. Like you don't know me. And they just
the
make
only
him
spoiler I have episode 4 is I love the writing.
Yeah, it was so good, you know, and I love that stuff.
I want to touch base on something John said a minute ago, where you were disappointed that other Frank stories weren't good, other Punisher stories, and it's like, to me, Punisher, Eternals, and Inhumans, the Royal Family anyway. Those three, you can have a good short mini series with them, but like none of those three should have ongoing series. All of them should be background for other characters. because Punisher works best as a foil.
I
He
love
works
him as a
best
foil.
when it's either showing somebody what they need to do or showing somebody what they shouldn't do, or, it's just, by the way, there are 2 separate Punisher stories in which a cosmically powered hero with powerful bracelets goes to Punisher to learn how to be a killer. It's weird that it happened twice,
There's the Greg Rucka run of Punisher where they gave him the sidekick.
Which one? Mike, talk about Microchip?
The girl.
That was a Greg Rucka.
No.
It was
Oh.
more recent. It was maybe the last
I didn't
5 or
read that
10
one yet.
years. It was Greg Rucka, but Greg Rucka does a really good thing where his main characters, the title characters, don't talk because I don't need to know what Wolverine's saying. He's just going through it and somebody else is dictating Wolverine's thoughts. He did it with Punisher.
A Batman story narrated entirely by Robin is always good.
And but that was so cool for Punisher because I was like, okay, this is what that first issue. I sold like all of my old comics. I kept that one and my Neil Adams signed Man Band appearance because those are the 2 that like affected me the most.
Yeah.
So like,
I sold all of my old comics, but kept all of the Archie Ninja Turtles because that was the first series that I bought front to end, beginning to end.
I love that.
but that like I want a good Punisher story. I want the like self.
So I've got these ideas. Let me just tell you about
Well, the
we're gonna
ideas
call-
are the important part. So
We can't use the term Punisher, so we're gonna use a different term for punishment. I looked it up. We're gonna call him the Avenger.
Oh
Yeah, we're just gonna call him the Avenger.
that's free. That's good to use.
We don't have a problem. And he doesn't use guns. He'll use like armor attack or something. No one's done that.
Well, what if
Have you seen
he's
The
not
Boys?
Oh my god. Everybody always talks about Punisher issues. I've noticed something that if I see somebody that has a Batman story that is just Batman with a different coat of paint, like there's no actual extra depth to it, I worry about that person. I've never met somebody that does that kind of a story that is not a little bit troubling.
And the people that want to tell those stories the most are the people that, like, my advice is always read more comics. They're always like, I want to do this Batman story. I'm like, oh, big Batman fan. They're like, I've never really read the comics. Like they don't have that input of stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand. Why do you want to do this then? You don't read 100 of these a week? Like, what are you doing?
Well, what gets to me is how did I'm getting off topic here, which we do all day anyway. But like, how do you go about reading all of these superhero stories as a kid and then not internalize any of those hero lessons? Like,
how
none of
the
those
people
things...
that think Superman would vote right wing, like,
right?
Like,
it's
how
like,
do you see that? And like, it baffles me. I'm honest to God flabbergasted every time I see it.
I actually had somebody contact me the other day because they know that I do comic book history stuff, and they're like, hey, I saw that panel of Superman and a bunch of multicultural kids saying that you should never trust anybody that bullies somebody who looks different from them. Is that real? Yes, that's real. It's just like,
really good AI is what that is. We all know it.
well, no, I mean, because the whole Moon Knight going after Dracula thing, that's all Photoshop. But like that one was like, no, this is real.
Yeah.
Superman does want you to love everyone equally, and
yes, it's Superman. Again, it's people that want to like put like different things on them because they've never actually read a Superman comic.
Yeah,
and it baffles me. I'm like, why pick that guy? You can make up any character and make them right wing and crazy and bigoted. Why Superman?
See,
Truth,
when I was a kid, I
justice,
thought
in the American way.
He's
That's
an
what-
illegal alien, man. Like
okay, I just told somebody this the other day. You know that when
voted.
you know that when John Byrne rebooted Superman in the 80s,
Yeah.
they were originally going to make him born on Earth. So check it out. The one that published, this black little spaceship comes down and it opens up and inside's baby Kal-El, and it's called a birthing matrix, and it's called that because they wanted to say that he's legally from Kansas, but.
oh my God.
But you should see the pages exist. He actually drew what he originally wanted, which was they crash with Laura L giving birth and dying. And it's like, wow, he just really didn't want to make him illegal.
Yeah, like that's trying really hard to make sure people aren't represented by this character.
Yeah, like, wow. They were trying so hard.
And that's like sometimes when I see the hoops
illegal
they
now,
jump through.
right?
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
It wouldn't matter anyway now.
exactly.
Oh, my
like it doesn't matter. I've never understand like how hard they have to work to try to paint their views onto a character. I'm like, there's other characters. Go support Nuke. Go look at Nuke for 2 seconds and you can go.
Exactly.
He could be your guy. You know, he's
When I
already
was a
taking the
little
red
kid-
pill.
When I was a little kid, I thought I would hate Captain America. I thought Captain America was just too
Same.
too jingoistic. I was that kind of kid. But then I actually read some Steve Rogers books, and I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
He's Superman. Like, that's the point. In fact, for years, I would tell people that my favorite Superman movie, it still is up to this point, actually, is Captain America: The First Avenger, because that's the way Superman should act.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really kind of hoping for the one coming out this summer, because I have yet to get that in a movie.
Yeah.
Since Christopher Reeve, it's like
I hate how much of my hope is pinned on that movie for like so many different things. I'm like, it just has to be good. You need to check on me if it's not good.
I will say
I'm worried.
there are two things that I've said I don't want in a Superman movie. One is Lex Luthor, and the second one is an evil person with Superman's powers.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get both of
we're getting
those
both
this
of those,
summer.
but we're getting the dog.
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
okay with that.
Right.
I will. The dog could negate the other two. Let's find out. And again, I don't have any problem with Lex Luthor. I love him in stories. I have no problem with evil twin
It's just been
stories.
done
Stories
so
great.
much though.
It's just every Superman movie is either Lex Luthor or an evil Superman or both.
Hear me
It's
out.
like
What if we get them into like a real estate plot? So like really subvert the thing and like
wait. The evil Superman.
Yeah.
What
Because now
if-
we're talking.
What if we did Homelander, but he's actually a good guy?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Dude, I love
like,
that.
what if he was like patriotic, but like for
Also,
the
what do you mean
world?
Homelander's not a good guy? Excuse me? I'm going to need you to expand upon that because have you seen the show? He has an American flag.
That's true. He has to be a good guy by law.
What are you talking about? He's a Christian. But I've addressed the Homelander thing a couple of times because it came up when I was first writing Hellion and Bash, and I listed him as an example. And I had people legitimately asking, like, what do you mean? Like, sure, he does some bad things, but isn't he, like, morally gray? And I'm like, no, there's nothing gray about this character. Are we watching the same show? Are we reading the same book? Like, that's the thing that I don't
He's
understand.
not an anti-hero?
Right.
What we're thinking about.
It honestly, it makes me so upset that I could cry because I love these characters so much. Like, I get if you don't understand what Archie's about. Like, I love Archie to death. There's so many things that you could do in an Archie comic. I get if you don't understand it because it's doing
What if
a
he
lot
was
of
a
stuff.
superhero?
Right. But I don't get why.
Okay,
You can
the
read
point
Superman and be
is-
confused.
The point is, there are all these ideas out there, and it's not the character. It's what you do with that character. It's how you build that character. It's who's telling the story. It's you out there listening to our podcast. You have to write your own story, draw your own story, act in your own story. Be like these two and not like me that does 2 books every 4 years. Hey, listen, T.S., I have loved having you here, and now I'm upset at myself for missing so many of your lives, although I have seen a few of them. Where can people find you online?
I am at T.S. Luther everywhere that you can find people online, mostly Blue Sky and TikTok. I have a website called Can't Be Killed Creations with all my books on there. I'm being published by Professional Entropy, brand new publisher. I'm like the only creator they have right now, so you can find all of my stuff there for the most part. And then later on this year, Find the Digger. We were just talking about it at Invader Comics. So that's the important one when it goes to going into a comic book shop. Tell them you want that book. Tell them you want this dude from TikTok, T.S. Luther, in Invader Comics. They're not everywhere. They're in a lot of shops, but because Diamond blew up, distribution is a little bit wonky right now. So
Let
make
me
sure
ask
you
you a
tell
question
them.
though. If people go to your TikTok, are they gonna know that you are involved in comics in some way?
I know.
Do you tell
Sometimes I
them?
try to mention it. Sometimes I try to make sure it happens.
How would
but
you word that?
sometimes I'll open up a video. I say hello, kind of thing. I'll stroke my beard, but I usually say, "Hi, my name's TS, and I write comics."
You're that guy.
I knew him from somewhere.
All right, and John, one of our team here. How can people find you online?
At Avena Comics everywhere. All platforms, all socials, I'm there.
Good branding. My branding is not as good on many of the socials, TikTok and Instagram, especially. I am Kevin Garcia _com because, as Freddie will remind you over and over again, I'm also KevinGarcia.com. Apparently, I do own it. But Blue Sky does not let me have an underscore. So on Blue Sky, I'm just Kevin Garcia, which is fair because that means every other Kevin Garcia has to rename themselves anyway, just like they have to do on their websites because I got it first, guys. And of course, this is My Primos Podcast, and you can find us at myprimospodcast.com. And of course, using that @ symbol on pretty much every one of the social medias at My Primos Podcast. And by the way, I should mention, we didn't really get to talk about this a lot earlier, but we at My Primos Podcast have been creating a Patreon. And we have in this Patreon been doing kinds of, whatever it is we do. So for example, I talk about comics a lot, but I never do reviews. So I've been doing comic book reviews there. John, I just say let him cook because he knows what he's doing. He literally cooks.
I
He
literally
literally cooks.
I
And,
give
oh my-
recipes and I cook. I talk a lot about comics. Let someone else do it. I'm just gonna
make food and feed guests. That's my thing.
Meanwhile, we got Elia, who is there doing show reviews, and then Freddie, who is just doing everything. So, we are also at Patreon, just my Primos at Patreon. I just want to point that out. And with that, I want to thank you guys for being here, and keep an eye out for TS next time he is on Kickstarter, because he will be back. And keep an eye out for both TS and John at your local comic book stores. And if they're not at your local comic book stores, talk to your local comic book stores and ask them, are they okay? Something wrong? Why do they not have these comics? And with that, thank you guys for joining us on My Primos Podcast. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye,
Bye,
everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.